It's really important for me that our Marlborough group carries on. So as long as I'm important for that role, I'll stay there. But we will want to grow some women in the leadership role in our area. Well, my name is Lone Sorensen and I'm from Marlborough. Not originally, as most of you can probably hear. So to actually say a little bit more about where I am today and who I am, I have to start from the beginning, which is actually born in Denmark, and I'm born probably as far away from New Zealand dairy farming as you can just about get, because I was born on the 9th floor in a skyscraper in Copenhagen, which is the capital of Denmark, from city parents. And that was where I grew up. In a small family unit of 3 people, me and my parents. Quite a happy little unit. I was a very shy child, and I can still remember as a child I didn't dare go down on the playground unless my mother was with me. But there was one very big defining moment in my life that changed that altogether, which was when I was 10 years old. I woke up in the middle of the night and heard my mum and dad having this major argument, which was quite unusual. And I overheard my mum talking about my father and his drinking issues, which I had no idea. And my whole world changed just like that. The whole curtain was ripped from my eyes about happy families, happy childhood and all that sort of thing. And my childhood ended in that moment at the age of 10. And I sort of had to become an adult at that sort of moment because we were only 3. So the next 8 years was spent coping with my father's addiction to alcohol and depressions. And it probably formed me a lot in the person I am today, because I had to come out of my cell, and I became tough, which has also been something I had to cope with later on, because I've got very little tolerance towards anyone with self-pity and that sort of thing, which I think comes from that time. But the next 8 years was spent like that, and I learned a lot from it, that you can't help people with addictions or depressions unless they really want to be helped. So self-preservation actually set in when I was 18, and I'd met got a boyfriend that was later to become my first husband at college. And my love of animals through these years also grew. I loved animals, and I still do, with a passion. And I think too, because they never let you down, and they're always the same. So through my college years, when with my first, which became my first husband, he became my rock, together with also a love of God. Not that I overnight became a passionate Christian. God was always there, and I come from a family where we did go to church occasionally, and I learned to pray the Lord's Prayer and that sort of thing. But he became someone that was there, looked after me. So every time I sort of went off the rails and a little bit, there was something always happened that brought me back, and that was he was always there, so he became really important to me too. But I married, and with my love of animals and anything to do with farming, really, because I spent my weekends on farms and going to shows just because I loved the animals. I decided to go to university, and I studied agricultural science. And I also became quite involved in became an animal activist actually, which put me a bit on loggerheads with the university, and I was threatened with never get a job and all that sort of thing. But it probably also made me stronger, I think, and made me follow things that I really were passionate about. But after university I became a farm advisor, and there I actually discovered a love of organising. I found I was actually pretty good at organising things, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed organising things, and I really enjoyed going out and solving other people's problems, which I found very interesting. So I spent 6 years as farm advisor, going out visiting farms and talking to farmers and what was the problem here and trying to solve it, and I really, really enjoyed that. But through those years too, and I had a farm myself which was mainly just a hobby farm, where I had all the animals. Being an animal lover, I had any animals you could just about mention. I mean, going from poultry and geese and ducks and sheep and cattle and everything there. But during those years, my husband found out that was not him, and we ended up actually parting, and I got divorced. And that was the first time in my life where I was without my rock. So I was single, having a farm, having quite a stressful job. But I actually also, during that time where I was on my own, experienced that a sort of freedom, because for the first time it was only me and I could decide for me, and it was great. But I got the opportunity to go to New Zealand to a Jersey cattle conference, the World Jersey Cattle Conference, back in 1989. And that was my first visit to New Zealand, and I was also going to look into a certain breed of sheep that I was really interested in. And I was going to travel with a group of other Danes, and in the airport I met my second husband. We sort of only said hello, but we were traveling together, and during the visit we felt passionate in love, actually, and also both with one another, but also with the country as a whole. So we already at that stage actually went and spoke to real estate agents and to find out what could we buy a farm, and what was farm prices, and what were the opportunities in New Zealand. And he, being a cattle, a breeder of Jersey cattle back in Denmark, and having his own farm, I mean, we did have another angle to get into that, because he would have an asset and I had a farm too. So we ended up going back to Denmark and had our first son, Frederick, a year later, and I went from being a farm advisor to moving up to the area where his farm were, which was in the opposite end of Denmark as I was in, actually, and got a job as a teacher. And I found out I was not that good as a teacher, as a farm advisor. The students drove me nuts. And it was actually an agricultural polytech, an agricultural polytech, where you educated organic farmers. I did enjoy it, but it was a real challenge for me to do that, because my patience with people when they couldn't understand what I was explaining, I was really, really struggling with. So I didn't get the best of reviews either from the students sometimes. But anyway, I was there for 3 years, and it took us about those 3 years to get everything organized, to get the permission to immigrate to New Zealand, and we had decided that's what we wanted to do. So in 1992 we took off to New Zealand with our 2-year-old son and a suitcase, and we flew directly to Blenheim, because we had decided we wanted to move to Marlborough, because we are coming from a really flat, boring country, and the thing we really wanted, or perhaps especially me, I wanted the rivers, the mountains, the hills. I wanted everything I didn't have back home. So we flew directly to Blenheim, and I have to say this is the biggest experience I've ever had of freedom. To stand with a 2-year-old child and a suitcase in the small airport in Blenheim, and the world is your oyster. There was nothing you had to worry about. You just had some bag of money somewhere in a bank, and all this, and you could do whatever you liked. And it was just the most overpowering feeling of freedom. And we bought an old car and went around looking at farms, and it turned out there was no farm in Marlborough that actually suited the money we had and us. So as all good settlers do in all the storybooks, what do? You go west, and so did we. So we packed up the car with a couple of mattresses, and we slept 2 adults and a small child in the back of the car, and drove west, because we didn't want to spend money on anything that wasn't necessary. We just wanted to save as much money as we could for this farm we wanted. So we drove west and ended up in Merseyside with a real estate agent, and he took us around looking at farms, and every time we saw one, I said, nah. And in the end, in the middle of the Buller Gorge, he just stopped the car and turned around and said, what do you really want? And I was extremely car sick. Anyone that's been on the West Coast knows the roads are like that, and I was in the back seat, holding on and trying not to spew him in the face when he sat there. And I sort of got out through my clenched teeth that what I really wanted was show me where there was mountains and bush and river and all those sort of things. And he said, okay, I know one place that, I've heard they might want to sell. So he took us in 3 k's down a small road in the middle of the rainforest, and we got in there, and we couldn't really see much land. There was a small cottage there and a small milking shed, and we walked up, and all I could see was this fantastic bush, big boulders and hills, and I said, yes, I like it. My husband said, no, because he's the farmer, and anyway, and he was ready to walk off, and I said, no, let's have a bigger look. And it took us several hours to walk around, because the farm was sort of spread out with bush gullies, and then a few paddocks and bush gullies and all that, and in the end, I was yeah all the time, but we ended up going away and going further down south of the West Coast, But as further down we went on the west coast, the bigger the ditches got. And when my husband saw that, he said, nah, too much rain. I mean, we didn't know it was raining on the west coast, but that was just too much. And it turned out to be that particular farm suited exactly the money we had. So we ended up buying it, and there was a moment there that threw us a bit, because we don't know anything about cattle TB in Denmark. And when we bought the farm, we suddenly realized we'd actually bought a farm in a TB endemic area, on movement control, with TB reactors. Not a good thing if you're a Jersey breeder. Not a good thing at all. But that was what we had bought, and we stayed there for nearly 4 years, 3.5 years. And I loved every moment of it. We lived in the midst of this wilderness, coming from really civilized Denmark, and here we were with earthquake and, you know, mountains falling down when it rains, and big boulders roaring through the river. You could see for the kitchen window when it really, you know, when nature really showed itself, and I just loved it. I thought it was just amazing. But a thing that happened there too was we had a second child. Our second son was born in Westport. And coming from this background of telling other people what to do, I suddenly found myself stuck in the middle of the rainforest with 2 small children and a husband that I realized was really old-fashioned, and thought, this is great. I've caught the wife. She's out here. She can't go anywhere. It's great. I've got this housewife now, and I've got my kids, and she can stay in this house and look after that. And I hated that. I felt really trapped. Not being in that particular place, but just from that role that I was suddenly in that I didn't like. And I was thrown a lifeline, because a Danish magazine, which is this one here, that's called me and said, oh, would you like to write articles for a year or 2? And I said, oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah, no, that would be great. So I did that, and I found I really enjoyed that, actually. And after that year or 2, I can't remember, it was a year or 2, and I sent my final letter, you know, and thanked them for the opportunity and so forth and so forth. Apparently, for some peculiar reason, these articles have become quite popular, so the magazine went back and said, no, please don't stop, you know, do you want to carry on? And I said, oh yeah, I could do that. And I've now been writing to them for 17 years. Somebody just told me the other day, and I thought, gosh, we did all those years ago. I'm getting old. But anyway, yeah, and I really enjoyed that, and it actually gave me just that little lifeline to cope with my life as it was, and to sort of prevent myself from actually going down a deep black hole myself, because I love my children and I love my family, but I found that role really, really hard to cope with, and I had my children late in life too, and having had all that career before was really hard for me. But after 3.5 years, we sold the farm and moved up to Marlborough. My husband had found a farm up there that he liked, and it was smaller than we sort of wanted, but anyway, we moved up there with 140, I think it was, of our best cows. And in a small valley again. We like small valleys, I do in particular, off the main road. And we really had a great lifestyle there for 4 years. We did everything ourselves, but we had lots of time to do other things, go sailing in the Sounds and all that sort of things. But my husband's a bit of a gypsy, and I don't like change. I have to say that. For somebody that hates change, I don't seem to have done much else in my entire life. So, but I don't particularly like that. But after 4 years, he said, nah, I don't want to milk these cows any longer myself. We need to grow or retire, and he didn't want to retire. So I got dragged into another venture, kicking and screaming, which was expanding. So we bought another farm. And I loved it on that farm where we lived, but it was really run down, and I realized that if we were really going to do something, we had to move over there. It's only 4 or 5 k's away from the other one. So we moved over there, and that was a big change too, because suddenly we had staff. And I thought, oh yeah, staff, that'll be great, big family, we'll find the right people, lovely people, and they'll stay here forever, the next 20 years, big happy family. Doesn't work like that somehow. And I quickly learned to distance myself a little bit, to be nice, but distance myself from it, because I got too much personally involved in the beginning, and it's really hard when it doesn't work out. It took a lot out of me. And during those first years on that second farm, which my other passion is gardening, and I came from a really nice garden to sitting on this platform outside the house and being blown off the veranda every time it blew, because there wasn't much planting there. That was another outlet of my creativity, and just surviving was just getting into the garden and just plant. So, but also another thing that happens was that Dairy Women's Network came down to Marlborough, and just for an introduction, to Dairy Women's Network. And my husband saw it in the paper and pointed it out, which he has regretted ever since. Because he doesn't like it at all now. But at that time he thought, oh yeah, what about that? You should go there. And I thought, oh yeah, I'll go there. And I went there and I thought, wow, this is wonderful. This is just what I like. I would really like to be involved in this. And I put my hand up and ended up with being the convener with a group of wonderful women as a committee. And I can't remember exactly how many years it is ago, but we were just talking about it, probably about 7 now, years or something like that, maybe 8. 2004, so 6 years. 7 years, yeah, 7 years ago, and it's been a great journey for me because the women I sometimes meet at farmers' meeting, they never said a word, or you never got behind the hello, goodbye sort of thing, or how's your kids sort of thing, came to this meeting, and I suddenly thought, where did these ones come from? You know, we couldn't shut them up, and you know, and they were blah, 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 and we had a great time, and I just felt so good because I suddenly knew all these people in our community that I hadn't known before, and then it developed to being all over the country, and it was just brilliant for me, and it had been a great support for me personally. And I found an outlet too for my love of organizing things and getting things happening, and probably a little bit telling other people what they should be doing and sort of thing. And I found an outlet for that, and that's been really, really good for me as a person too. But I've probably gotten to the stage now that, you know, I want to step back a little bit, but I have got that controlling part of my personality too, that I would like to get some other women into that leadership sort of role, and I've got Anne-Marie in that role now too, and we would like to sort of get a younger person in there too, and to develop her, but I still have a bit of, it's my baby, and I just don't want to go back and then to see it all fall apart. It's really important for me that our Marlborough group carries on, so as long as it that I'm important for that role, I'll stay there, but we will want to grow some women in the leadership role in our area. The articles I write, and I don't know, from the very beginning when I was asked to write it, I mean, this is the magazine, it's called Bovilogisk, which Bovilogisk means anything to do with bovines, with cattle, or dairy cattle especially. And there's Jersey cows in front of this one, but it's for all dairy farmers in Denmark. But I actually decided from the beginning that I was a woman, and I already had all these issues of feeling trapped and all that sort of thing, and I thought, oh, I'm going to write these articles from a woman's sort of perspective, and I'm going to write about not all the great things we might have achieved, but just as much all the failures we have made, all the funny little things that happens and things that go bad and wrong and all those sort of things. And I think maybe that's what sort of struck a core with people. It's meant too that I've had, which I had never ever thought about, but we've just had an immensely amount of people coming, visiting us here in New Zealand from Denmark that reads the article, and it's been busloads sometimes actually, all tourist groups, our farmers coming down, and the funny thing is they all come and give me a hug or shake my hands, and they all know me. I don't know them, but but that's okay, and it's been wonderful in many ways, because I can remember one particular time where I had written, I can't remember why I wrote that, but I'd written about things like, you know, I feel more at home alone with my dogs on the top of a mountain than I do in a big group of people. And I'd written it, and we had a year or two later a tourist group coming, and this couple came over to me and said that has been really important because he thought no one else was like that, and that had meant a lot to him, that there was someone else out there that felt like that, and it was okay to feel like that, and I felt really good. So I sort of thought, oh, that was great, you know, I'd help someone maybe or whatever. So so I do write about what happened to us and our family, but also it's important to write about what's happening in the dairy industry in New Zealand, because that's what they want to know too, you know. So I sort of try and weave it all in together, really.